Greetings, gods and goddesses in training. Welcome back to the channel. It is Uncle Makara. All relations. Let's get started today. Today we're talking all about my origin story. Every superhero has an origin story. Just like, Spider-Man got bit by the radioactive spider, or, you know, Superman came from Krypton, or uh, the Hulk had this gamma radiation or whatever. So my thing was panic attacks, right? I would get extremely anxious when I was younger because I was so separate from God. And I started to notice that as I was growing older, I would encourage myself to really gain a strong mind and an intellect, but I was deeply not embodied, disembodied growing up. So this is kind of the story of how I smashed the dogma in my life and basically distilled it into flow state essence, right? And I was the classic, overthinking archetype, dissociating through cartoons, comic books, and overachievement, you know. And that's when I discovered self-help. That's when I kind of overdosed on self-help. And I broke through it. I broke through it. I didn't heal overnight. Obviously, I had a lot of help from a lot of different people. And I burned through my karma like a junkyard fire, basically. I rewired my nervous system, used binaural entrainment. I used to study a lot about like binaural entrainment, subliminals from a young age when I was just in college, and even before that, I kind of had some ideas of it, but I knew I had to wait until I was an adult to fully kind of experiment on myself, right? Because that's kind of a little bit. So if I were to tell my younger self anything, I would say experiment more, definitely. Um, don't think so much. Be more, take action more, right? That's what I tell my younger self. However, I had had many near-death kind of experiences where I'd come back with these massive spiritual downloads. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced anything similar to this, but this is kind of a very unique thing, right? A very unique thing when this tends to happen. So let me just share this with the tribe. Okay, cool. I think everyone has it now. So what I was saying is, yes, I wasn't just healing. I was trying to become a ritual in motion. I didn't want to fit in anymore. I wanted to forge my own pantheon, my own thing. So first, I'd been to a, hipster college in the middle of nowhere. I have an MSc in applied positive psychology and coaching psychology from UEL. And I'm an actor, I'm a rapper, and I invented this thing with my business partner, Ryan G. We invented this new field called peak performance shamanism, right? And in college, I was also a former cult leader. That was the first time where we all goofed off, obviously, but it was more so mastering our mind. So it was called shellism. And the whole idea was we have to break out of our shells, right? To break out of these shells of who we're being into the authentic, real us that transforms and takes us over, in a certain way. So that was the first time where I had really started to fuse my interests, um, and actually starting to lead a collective, right? A group of people. Of course, we didn't do any shady activities or anything like that. It was just a joke, kind of like a parody, a satire, you could say. But at the same time, I'd learned about summoning and egregores and all this kind of stuff. My dad is a retired psychiatrist, so he's a Vajrayana Buddhist scholar and a meditation master, and my mom's also a doctor. So this is what happens kind of when East, West, science, spirit, all fuse into like kind of a multidimensional avatar. So I had built this program called Flomo Sapien to test my codes, and it worked. That was kind of my first breakthrough. That's when I first began, working with different people. I think Samba had found me during that time as well, and things started to work. Things started to pile up. I was also part of this old tribe of a brotherhood, and then we had left it because we noticed the inconsistencies and the kind of strangeness that they brought. So it wasn't resonating with us anymore. So we had to create our own thing. We had to. It was like a um, something in us was pulling us towards a greater calling. And I think if we would have stayed there, we would have just been overshadowed by whatever else that was going on there. So I wasn't trying to go viral. I was trying to go vital. Okay. I created a new class of being, the integrated, the sacred rebel, the wired in Heyoka, the outlaw genius, the kind of psychonaut of purpose, right? So, what does Primal Sutra really stand for, right? It's for the ones who speak in memes but dream in mantras, right? Ones who make jokes at funerals but cry during sunsets, loop subliminals until their skulls start buzzing. They maybe read some Jung, some Reich, some Ram Dass. They study Tesla. They lift heavy. They do breath work in the cold. So they don't just do the work, they bleed myth into existence. We are the taboo transformers, the shadow surfers, the pathless path walkers. We are the gods and goddesses in training, and we do not need your approval. We are trained to win. We are built to bend timelines and be devoted to the sacred weirdness that is life. So if you're strange enough to believe in yourself, join us. Well, you're already one of us. So welcome to the inner ring, the cult of the real ones. Welcome to Primal Sutra. Okay. So how did I come into this topic, and why did I want to talk about GOTRAS and so forth? So last night I was doing the Kashyap mudra. Okay. Let me just show you guys how to do this. Very easy. Okay. Like this, close them down. Okay. So just the thumbs are sticking out. So I did this last night because I was guided by all of my spirit guides to do this. And I did this for a solid, probably like 11 to 15 minutes of this. And I'd noticed suddenly this energy was emerging within me. Okay. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but this mudra actually helps you to balance your brain hemispheres. And it creates a harmony between like your masculine, feminine energy. So your polarity, right? Between your animus and anima. So this mudra, the Kashyapa mudra, is also my Gotra. So it's one of the fuels of Primal Sutra, if you think about it, because it represents balance, the middle path, the middle way, right? In a certain way. Now, what the fuck is a Gotra? And why should you give a damn? So in India, a Gotra is known as an ancestral bloodline or clan. It is traced through a rishi or sage. So it's basically this is the OG like spiritual DNA of your lineage in Hindu tradition, right? And it's not about your surname or caste, it's much deeper. It's like your spiritual operating system, right? Your soul's ancestral software. It's like a cosmic fingerprint that links you to an ancient seer who passed down codes, rituals, and all these like psychic technologies through your blood. Right? So think of it like if your soul had an origin story in a Marvel universe, your Gotra is the founding superhero clan, right? So each Gotra descends from one of the Sapta rishis, okay? The Vedic rishis like Kashyapa, Bharadwaja. I'm also connected to Bharadwaja because my mother's lineage. Um, Vishwamitra, etc., etc. So they weren't just bearded dudes humming under banyan trees, right? I don't want you to think of them as how they're depicted because these are reality hackers. They're astral navigators, right? They're energetic architects. They figured out consciousness tech before science even caught up. So when I was born into this line, it's like I was inheriting their karmic blueprint and potential too. Because most people walking around energetically disconnected, right? Their body is here, but their lineage power is asleep. So this is when I started to understand more about my Hindu connection, my Sanatan Dharma connection, but also I became an omnist. I started to respect all paths and see the truth in each path, right? And I can share that more with the adepts if they choose to know more about it. You guys can always ask me. Um, so tapping into ancestral power, right? Understanding karmic patterns that are running through your line. Why does certain shit keep repeating, right? Activating rituals that are actually designed for your energetic system, and also reconnecting with your original purpose, why you're so incarnated into that family. So I'm not just Indian or Hindu or brown, I'm a descendant of an interdimensional consciousness lineage, right? Carrying a psychic frequency that was channeled from the cosmos into this earth. So if you're trying to, let's say, break generational curses, if you want your mantras to actually hit, if you're feeling lost in fire, then start with the Gotra, use that lineage to tune your vibration, and look at what your Rishi specifically stood for. Now, this works for Indians, but I am trying to understand how it works also for foreigners to tap into this code because I'm sure the Nordic lineage has a different version of a Gotra, and you know, the Yoruba pantheon has a different, the African diaspora has a different one. So find your own, right? Is what I could say. Is find your own spiritual clan that you might be connected to. Ask your father, ask your grandfather, go and do some deep dive, right, into the stuff. I did some deep dive. That's how I found out my own, right? So this is really rich because my name is Sumed Chatterjee. Okay. Now, or in other words, Sumedha Chattopadhyay, right? Chattopadhyay is the actual version of Chatterjee. It carries a spiritual, karmic, and very dharmic code, and together, these kind of wove my soul path together with these ancient codes because your name is like one third of your soul, and I kind of want to explain that through this, right? So Sumed is the name that is associated with the Buddha's past life. So in Buddhist lore, Sumedha was the past life of the Buddha, and he was a renunciate. When he met the Dipankara Buddha, he bowed down in the mud to let the Buddha walk over him, vowing to become the Buddha himself in a future age. So there's mud. Okay, I'm gonna let him walk over me for the mud, right? That's the level of humility that that is there here, right? So I'm not here for shallow enlightenment. I'm playing the long game, the liberation of all beings through my own becoming. And as I've noticed myself walking through a renunciant path before, this time I'm being called to embody wisdom in the world, not to escape the world. And this is where I understood that the escape used to be a theme when I was younger, right? I used to feel so out of the present moment, so stuck in the past and the future. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Right? And the moment I went back in touch with that pure presence, I activated my flow. And I started to understand that I could help people go from this fear state of mind to a flow state of mind. And this is when, you know, I got really the upheaval to start this channel, flow state activation, which is now known as Primal Sutra. Okay. So there was a evolution that came from this. So Sumed tells me that the Bodhisattva vow is already active within me. However, I need to begin to now walk the path for those different activations to actually solidify and into something, right? So Chattopadhyay or Chatterjee translates to teacher of the village under the chatter, The chatter is the umbrella. So an umbrella, right? Um, so under the chatter, these Brahmins, these scholars, poets, teachers, tantric mystics, they all sat together and they discussed things, right? They exchanged secrets. They talked about different codes, that they dropped poems and bars, right? And this is kind of the energy with which we have at Primal Sutra. We have a lot of poets, rappers there. We have a lot of writers, scholars. We have a lot of teachers there too. Different people, from different walks of life from all over the world. So we had recently cut the group down. We had more than 100 members, but now it's 55 because we want people to be really major participants in this, not just watch from afar like a ninja and be scared to communicate, right? Because that's not how this thing is going to lift off for you. You have to actually be in contact with me and actually speak up if you want to carry this vibration, right? Of being a psychic communicator, someone who can weave the mundane and the mystical into this lyrical living truth, right? So I'm not just here to teach you. You are also here to channel the sacred through your own language, through your own path. That's what I'm that's what I'm really here to help you with. So Sumed Chatterjee is a bodhisattva plus a bard energy. If I am here to channel ancient spiritual memory into modern myth making, translate the Dharma into, a language of memes, of flows, of different micro revolutions, and understand that I'm not here to be a passive seeker, but the one that remembered first. So Kashyapa is my Gotra. So Kashyapa is not just a sage, okay? Shall we pull up an imagery of him? Hold on. Whiteboard. Let me just reload this. This is not loading properly. I think this is the best imagery of him, which can kind of get you to understand how, yo, this guy is definitely in my family tree in some way, right? Like this guy is definitely in my family tree in some way. I don't know. Okay, bro, this is trippy. This is very trippy. Okay. As I even look at it, it's trippy. It's tripping me out, dude. Has my eyes, has my nose, has my mouth, has my ears. What the? Right? Has my forehead. Okay. So Kaishapa is not just a sage, he's a progenitor of cosmic diversity. So he fathered entire species of devas, asuras, nagas, birds, humans, uh, 13 wives, each embodying a distinct evolutionary archetype. And his name literally means vision or sight, okay? So vision or sight means you're implying a clairvoyance, an insight, right? Spiritual genetics. So he doesn't just populate the world, he encodes the world with different archetypes. So when, you know, the rishis were mocked by Indra, they nearly created a rival Indra to destroy him. But Kashyapa redirected their fire into Garuda, the king of birds, which was, Varuna's ride, an equal to Indra, not a rival. So this isn't just, a conflict resolution. This is like an alchemical redirection of cosmic intention, right? So after um, Parashurama had cleared the earth of Kshatriyas, he donated the earth to Kashyapa. So the earth is known as Kashyapi, right? The steward of Bhumi. Literally, he's a guardian of the land, of the lineage, of the Dharma itself, right? So you can think of it kind of like that. And he's also known as a grandson of Brahma, a son of Marichi. He's a father of avatars. and he carries this gunda, right, the staff, and he always chooses spiritual penance, tapas over power, right? He teaches you that true spiritual greatness is actually invisible and it emanates very silently. And this is something I have to learn, right? I can't be silent. Dang. But yeah, I guess I'm here to learn from my own clan. So he's here to be a timeless guide across the yugas, right? Because Kashyapa and Aditi become uh, Dasharata and Kaushalya. They become Vasudeva and Devaki. So those are the parents of Rama, parents of Krishna, parents of Vamana, right? So this is one soul guiding divine birth across all eons. So this isn't just a guru to me. It's like a cosmic midwife of avataric descent. So if he's known as he's Garuda's initiator, if you think of it like that. So he doesn't just feed him; he guides him to the trials that awaken his power. So he's the guide of guides. So he doesn't fix your problems; he shows you how to carry this kind of sacred responsibility within yourself. And of course, many of these different things were authored scriptures like the Kashyapa Smriti and the Kashyapa Samhita. I have to go through these ancient texts now. That's like a big ancestral task for me to just like kind of go into the stuff. But he wasn't just a sage, he was a civilizational architect, man, you know, encoding practical dharma for all levels of being. So he's the man of many realms, right? He gave birth to the Adityas, the solar deities, the Titans, the demons, the Danavas, who were the subterranean asuras. He gave birth to the Garuda and the Aruna, who were like winged beings, and the Nagas, who are serpent beings, serpent races. So Kashyapa is like the cosmic father bridging heaven, hell, earth, and sky. So think of him like a multi-dimensional geneticist, but like a Vedic equivalent of that, right? So every avatar seems to pass through his lineage, as if he's like a reflective womb of Vishnu's descent, right? So he's an actor on the stage, he's like a sacred infrastructure, like a, you know, substrate that makes the divine play possible. So he's the convergence point of ritual, wisdom, humility, power, peacekeeping, and fatherhood of worlds. So to meditate on him is to align with right action, responsibility beyond ego, and so forth, right? So if someone says, I belong to a Gotra, what they're really saying is, my ancestral sage, the one who passed down the streams of knowledge I carry, is this Rishi, right? Now, I'm also associated with Chatterjee, but also Mukherjee, right? So Mukherjee is more so associated with Bharadwaja, I believe. Okay. Hmm. What's a good image to show this? I guess this is an all right image. Hmm. Oh man, it's way too blurry. Oh well, this will have to do for now, guys. You can Google it in your own time, okay? This will have to do for now, okay? They're kind of similar though, but yeah. So this one, this dude, this legend is Rishi Bharadwaja. So he's one of the Saptarishis again, and he's a master of Vedic hymns, medicine, warfare, metaphysics. And he created the composing parts of the Rig Veda and says to have received knowledge directly from Indra, the king of gods. So in some versions, he's like the adopted son of Brahma himself. And Bharadwaja is not just a sage. I think he was like a multidimensional genius because he embodied brahmacharya, spiritual discipline, and knowledge that crosses heavens and earth. So what does it mean to belong to this gotra? Well, it implies that my soul is directly aligned with a spiritual intellect, a kind of discipline or a ritual precision, communication between divine and mortal realms, and a celestial wisdom that's rooted in a kind of responsibility. So oftentimes we're karmically bound to carry knowledge responsibly. So Bharadwaja was like the father of the war teacher in the Mahabharata too, right? Dronacharya. So his ashram was a powerhouse of Vedic learning and martial arts training too. So many Ayurvedic treatises and like astral sciences trace back to Bharadwaja. So this is like the wisdom warrior, is how I want you to think of it, right? He's like a divine Einstein, a celestial Da Vinci, and a disciplined monk all in one. That's Bharadwaja, right? Like a soul guide of high vibration healers and philosophers. So in Bengal, right, Kashyapa is the Gotra assigned to many Bengali Kulin Brahmins, including Chatterjees, Banerjees, Mukherjees, Ganguly. So, a Gotra is a lineage system tracing descent through a specific Vedic rishi, a spiritual and genetic ancestor. Now, I might have to ask my parents deeper into this and go way deeper into this, but I'm just telling you guys what I know from doing the research and doing this mudra last night and then getting these epiphanies and downloads, right? So DNA is believed to trace back to the seer. Okay, your go through doesn't mean literal biological lineage, but spiritual lineage. So myself as a Chattopadhyay, I am ritually, philosophically, and dharmically considered a descendant of Kashyapa Maharishi. Now, Kashyapa didn't just birth humans, right? He birthed gods, demons, birds, serpents, sages. So that means my soul lineage knows how to hold paradox. Paradox. Yeah, we live in a paradox, okay? He knows how to hold paradox. You carry the codes of integration, the reconciling of light and shadow, peace and power. So Kashyapa resolved celestial wars too, right? And he mediated between gods and rishis. So, as his descendant, my soul contract might be to be a peacemaker, a bridge, a kind of a wise guide in times of chaos. But he's also the one who comes to you when the divine needs grounding. And I think his energy honestly came through for that for me. Because otherwise, man, I'd be so in my head, right? So Kashyapa is like the grandson of Brahma. Like I said, he lived like a wandering monk and deep spiritual authority, but with an instinct to stay grounded, quiet, and observant. So it's almost like my greatness hides in my simplicity. And Kashyapa writes foundational texts to Smriti, Samhitas, laws, medicine. So you might feel a call to build systems of wisdom, right? If you're tied to this Gotra. Coaching, writing, healing, philosophical leadership, you know, I'm here to codify, essentially. Because as Kaishyapa's seeded species and archetypes, it's also karmically bound to seed me new paradigms, new projects, ideas, or communities that are evolutionary in nature. Shout out to our community, Primal Sutra, Safe Sangha, where you can fully evolve as a spiritual being. Join our Telegram group. Okay, say hi to the group. Keep us posted on your wins. Okay, on your wins. We only measure the wins because that is the sign of our progress. We also measure synchronicities. Okay, in that group. So yeah, share your wins and synchronicities. Um, as Kaishyapa also seeded species and archetypes, you're also karmically bound to seed new paradigms, right? So in other Bengali traditions, many rituals reference Gotra before chanting prayers or mantras and performing samskar. So that's where they like shave your head. They do poite sometimes. I didn't even do poite yet, but maybe I'm going to once. Who knows? Anyway, pierce your ears, right? They shave your head, do some rituals, which are said to have remove your imprints, right, from past lives. So basically, to invoke him is to say, I stand as the son of the great Rishi and the Kaishyapa, who birthed the gods, mediated heaven's politics, and walked humbly with a pot in hand. I carry his fire, his discernment, and his duty. Okay. So let's say that you're in a different pantheon, you're like really tuned into Agwe's energy, right? You're like, damn, I'm in the Yoruba pantheon. I grew up in Kenya, you know, now I'm living in the US or whatever, right? And you go back into your roots and you suddenly dig up that you have this connection to the water there or something, and suddenly Agwe shows up in a dream or something like this, right? What are you gonna do? Well, a similar invocation can be practiced like this from your own lens, right? Create create this similar pattern. I stand as the son or daughter of the great Agwe, right? Who's mastered the seven oceans and more. And you just speak in this way, right? There's a certain cadence and a rhythm to invoking something or calling something in. So you kind of have to work with that energy, right? Now, of course, you need to be initiated into this kind of stuff too. So this is why you should definitely join our path working. It'll just be a lot easier. Doing it yourself just takes longer, yo. Just ask someone who knows. You get what I mean? Like, just ask someone who knows. I think a lot of us we just feel like we got this all. I got this all on my own, but we live as interdependent creatures too. So don't be afraid to ask for help, guys, okay? But also don't be like the person just posting all your victim stories on social media and like, blaring it out, like kind of trauma dumping it on the world, right? That's not what we're about either. It's like you want to transmute that energy, right? You have to work with it, you have to get your healing done, right? This is not like some kind of a Yapathon 9000, right? Where we just start spilling out our guts and our soul, right? Into this group. But what it can be is catalyst for you, for change, for cool things emerging, for different understandings, right? I went from a flow junkie to a flow master. I mean, that's like a really huge shift, guys, if you think about it. But I've been at this for a while now, right? I've been at this for a while, and I recognize the pitfalls, the drawbacks, the different things that are, holding people back from actually expressing and evolving through their own lineage codes. So I think that once people really start to get this, they start to they will start to envision how their energy will start to emerge from within, right? So, hey there, Bathis. So GOTRA is a very interesting way of looking at things. And also by looking at your name, you can also understand the different fragments that come off of that name, right? Just do a brain dump, honestly. Like put down all of the things you know about yourself and your lineage on one side, and then spot all of the inconsistencies in your real life, right? So it could be sort of like this. This way of doing this, by the way, is really really key and powerful because it just simplifies everything, right? The three column practice. I just give this to every single one of my students because it's so effective, so effective. So let's say you write down spiritual downloads on one side, right? All of the different visions you've had throughout your life, like the big ones, like the highlight reel ones, like the moments where you were like, holy shit, that's the one, right? You know it. As I'm talking about it, you know exactly what I'm referring to, right? So just write them down, right? I saw a giant, rose colored being in a dream once. I went on this trip and I saw somebody who was connected to my lineage. I went to a museum and this random sculpture started to uh, give me hallucinations. I randomly went to this place and a book fell on my lap. I randomly picked up a crystal and it started vibrating in the car, and then we went here and this happened, right? So write down your big epiphanies, like random little epiphanies from your own spiritual path, right? Here, you want to catch the inconsistencies or the distortions, right? So as you catch these distortions, you have to understand, where isn't this accurate? Like, how is this not matching with my day to day somehow, right? If these were such cool things that happened to me, how can I distill this down into a resonance? Okay. So you can do this with anything. You write down your criticisms, spot the distortions, rational response, right? You can do this with anything, but I'm just giving you in regards to this. So let's just say spiritual download is, uh, I saw a purple cat, right? I saw a purple cat. What's the distortion? Seeing is not believing. However, I do like the violet flame and Lyra. Okay, so you're catching the distortion. So you're going, okay, I saw a purple cat, but also seeing is not believing, right? It's like, okay, I just saw it, right, from the corner of my eye. However, I do have a link to these two things, right? So you're finding out how it links back to your own story. Your own intuition is linking back to your own storyline, right? And here the resonance of this would be protection is near me, right? So this way you're kind of just solidifying it. This is what it means to me, right? That's what resonance would be. So it's like, this is what it means to me, right? So this is kind of how I want you to understand this map and start doing this, because this is really, really helpful in just getting you very clear on how you can resonate this throughout your timeline, right? So if protection is near you and you saw this purple cat, what does that mean for your spiritual path, right? And here you spotted it like this. So let's try another one. I saw myself as an old man in a dream. Okay. Let's say this. This was the download we got. Right. Maybe changing of a relationship to age in general, or um aging, right? And then what would be the resonance of this? Right. I make sure that old man within stays smiling. You see how amazing this technique is, right? Of just writing it down like this. And this is how you can actually not get it so caught up in your head, because if you don't catch the distortions of what your visions are, they're just going to remain hallucinations, guys. They're not going to be embodied into your actual spiritual life, right? This is what I'm really teaching you, is how you can embody all these teachings back into your spiritual life again, right? And so, without further ado, thank you so much for tapping in. I hope you have an incredible rest of your day. I know I kind of, yeah, a bit late for the live, but it is what it is. We got this upward spiral, gang. May we never be the same again. Podcast later today.